Huge crowds have gathered in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square, the focal point of protest and remembrance since the October 7 attacks. Families of those taken captive by Hamas have rallied there throughout the war. As a ceasefire with Hamas holds for a second day, US envoy Steve Witkoff addressed the crowd to cheers. Protesters hope it will be their last gathering, with Israel's military saying the remaining hostages could be released by Monday's noon deadline. Of the 48 still held in Gaza, only about 20 are thought to be alive. And in Gaza, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are returning to what's left of their homes as Hamas ceasefire with Israel holds. Aid deliveries to the Strip are expected to ramp up beginning Sunday. Returning residents are shocked by the level of ruin in Gaza.
Destruction as far as the eye can see. Day 2 of the ceasefire and ever more displaced Palestinians make their way back to Gaza City, only to find their homes in ruins.
Is this what's left of Gaza? Is this alive? We're returning to no homes and no shelter, and winter is approaching. No food and no water. We've not been able to find a sip of water for our children.
Further south in Khan Yunis, there are chaotic scenes as crowds surround the few aid trucks that have got through so far.
I heard aid was arriving, so I went to get food for my children. But this is not the way. I wish it would come through official channels. That would be much better, because some people take the aid while others get nothing.
The UN is ready to begin delivering large quantities of aid from Sunday, provided crossings are open to allow supplies to get through.
UNICEF has more than 1,300 trucks pre-positioned outside the Gaza Strip, ready to come in alongside trucks from other humanitarian agencies and our UN partners. This aid is life-saving and we need to see it get in immediately.
In some areas, Hamas is putting on a show of force, with police saying they are providing a reassuring presence on the streets.
Forces are deploying across the Gaza Strip in areas that are not under the control of the occupation. The biggest deployment is at junctions and markets for the security of citizens so that people feel that there is law and that no one is above the law.
While Gazans are dismayed at the scale of destruction in their homeland, there's also hope for the future, and for some, a resurgence of defiance.
This is the flag of Palestine. It runs in our blood. Destruction, death. Men, women and children have died, but the flag will remain.
With the rebuilding of Gaza just beginning, it's clear that while the war may be ending, there are still diplomatic and humanitarian mountains to climb to create a lasting peace.
Now let's bring in Mirette Mabrouk. She's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, a think tank in Washington, D.C., and she joins us from there. Mirette, we are now seeing people returning to their homes in Gaza, but this is not the first ceasefire in this conflict. How likely is it to hold this time, in your opinion?
So thank you for having me on. I think this time it is likely to hold. In truth, it is likely to hold as long as the United States, and particularly as long as President Donald Trump is engaged. He really is the glue to in this whole arrangement.
Now, according to media reports, Hamas is now recalling 7,000 fighters to reassert control over parts of Gaza. Also, a Hamas official said today that disarmament is, quote, out of the question. Isn't that concerning?
So I think in other circumstances it might be, but in this particular circumstance, we need to look at the context. There has been an enormous amount of diplomatic pressure placed on Hamas by the Arab countries. Remember, Hamas needs support from people to survive. So there has been enormous pressure placed on it by the Arab countries, and that was because they view that the deal put on the table because it has Donald Trump's backing, is a real opportunity out of the current slaughter. So I think Hamas can say that it's not going to disarm, but you also want to remember that the disarmament is actually slated for the second phase of this treaty. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think they understand that there is really very, very little wiggle room here, and they need an out of this more than anyone.
But could that be this rearmament? Could that be a major obstacle and complication for the second phase of that peace plan?
No, I don't think so. Obviously, nobody knows, but I don't think so under the circumstances. Hamas is in a very, very, very tight spot. They can continue fighting. They will continue to make life extremely difficult for the IDF, which has been fighting them for 2 years and really has achieved little except the death of 68,000 people. But at the end of the day, they will probably be defeated because Israel has greater firepower. So there really isn't anywhere to go. They need a way out of this. And you also want to take into account the enormous exhaustion on the ground of the Palestinians left in Gaza. So I think support for them is also going to dwindle. So I don't see it as an enormous setback, no.
Now, Donald Trump pushed hard for this deal and he forced Israel to accept it. It's an agreement between a democratic country, Israel, and a terror organization, Hamas. Is a deal with the terror group better than no deal at all?
Well, you don't make peace with friends, you make peace with enemies. And I think history is littered with terror organizations that became, legitimate ruling groups. I mean, Israel is one of them. I can think of at least 3 prime ministers. I think of it from Israel, whole part of the Irgun terror gang. So I think we need to look forward. Hamas are the only people who are going to be making this deal on the ground. So we have to deal with them. There's no way around it. And again, for the reasons I described earlier, it is in their interests to try and make a deal.
Thank you very much, Mirette. Mabrouk there, Senior Fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's now speak to Ahmed Bayram from the Norwegian Refugee Council in Amman. Hello, Ahmed. Thanks for joining us. What difference could this peace deal have on the lives of people in Gaza, especially when it comes to access to aid?
It could make all the difference, really, if the ink on paper turns into actual approvals of aid trucks to go in. So far, it hasn't made any difference. Of course, the bombs have stopped, and that's the number 1 priority that we had. The number 2 priority, or just as important, really, is to bring in all these quantities of food. And today there are 134,000 tons of food. That's a huge number. It could, overturn the worsening humanitarian conditions, the worsening malnutrition. Today inside Gaza, as we speak, there are 55,000 children suffering from severe acute malnutrition. In other words, they face death. So yes, this ceasefire is the first step and should be the first step towards a better future, towards a better reality, really, for the people in Gaza.
Right. We see thousands of families returning to what's left of their homes in northern Gaza. But what are some of their most urgent needs right now?
Everything is very much needed, Eddie. I mean, I can talk to you about food being the absolute number 1, of course. I can talk about clean drinking water. The Norwegian Refugee Council, we were providing before the Gaza city offensive began. We were able to reach tens of thousands of people with clean drinking water. The water infrastructure was bombed in the interim. And now we are starting from below scratch, really. We need medication. We need urgent evacuation for people with, life-threatening injuries. It's everything. It's a disaster zone, of course. And I hope the media will be able to go in. I hope the, DW Deutsche Welle will be able to go in and see the real scale of what is going to be a shocking scene. I think everything is needed today in Gaza, really.
Right. I mean, as you say, a lot of things urgently needed, but how quickly do you think this crucial aid can be delivered?
That's contingent on Israel's actions now and allowing the 8 crossings to open. There are 7 potentially 8 crossings that could open at maximum capacity to bring in hundreds of trucks every day. There is so much aid waiting in 5 different regions surrounding Gaza. It can happen. It just needs diplomatic pressure. And I think what is really important here is that the mechanism is there to monitor actually the transparency of those actions, to monitor these convoys that they are getting through and they are receiving the safety. It can happen. We are very hopeful that things will change now and that we will be able to reverse the famine, the destruction, the displacement and everything in between.
Right. So here's the thing. In the past, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, they coordinated much of the aid delivery. Who's taking the lead this time?
It should be, and it must be the UN. It must be the UN. The UN has its mechanism. It has its man and women power on the ground. It has the coordination. We have the lists. We know who needs what and where, and we have the ability to go there. We have hundreds of people on the ground, thousands of them. In the Norwegian Refugee Council alone, we have 240 people. We coordinate with the UN. We know exactly what is needed. There's no duplication. There is independence. There's neutrality. Things that GHF doesn't have and has proved not to have. So yes, everything is there. We have been in Gaza for years, not to mention the last 2 years when we were able to put everything, in service of the people, despite the risks and despite over 500 humanitarian workers being killed in the field as they perform their duties.
Right. So this is what we expect to happen as you've outlined there, but will the UN and other aid organizations be able to access all entry points into Gaza, or are there still some areas cut off?
I mean, so far we don't have that yet. We're not there yet, and of course, we all remember what happened with the Rafah crossing when it was bombed to pieces. It was closed. That is the vital lifeline. It has to reopen, but that depends on the infrastructure, not to mention Israel allowing aid to arrive thick and fast. It also, it's also dependent on Israel not, going through duplicate, tedious, cumbersome inspection processes. When the goods arrive in Ashdod, they have to go straight to Gaza. They can't be going through twice, 3 times what is needed in terms of scans and inspections.
Right. Ahmed Bayram from the Norwegian Refugee Council in Amman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.